For those of you who know it, I think every Sunday it's sang Jai Radha Madhav before class. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Giri Varadhari Jaya Giri Varadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Giri Varadhari Jaya Giri Varadhari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Dana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandan Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Natira Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Shri Radhe Radha Madhava Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Radha Nata Radha Radha Nata Shri Radhe Radha Radha Nata Shri Radhe Jaya Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Jaya Giri Govardhan Jaya Nitai Gaura Sundar Nitai Gaura Sundar Gaura Sundar Nitai Gaura Sundar Nitai Gaura Sundar Gaura Sundar Jayo Jai Ho Prabhupada 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 Jai Ho Srila Prabhupada 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 Jai Ho Srila Prabhupada Shri Radha Madhav Ki Jai Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupakadamahayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parishana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayavacha Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you all. We're reading and continuing our read from Krishna book. It's a very beautiful chapter, like all of them are in Krishna book. So I've got the old version. I'm not sure. Have many of you attended the programs regularly for the last few Sundays? Okay, if not, we'll continue. So this is chapter 87, which is praised by the personified Vedas. And we're continuing from just the last section, the last few pages. Because there's quite a few pages to read, we won't read all of them. I'll just discuss sections in between and read some relevant parts. Dear Lord, the personified Vedas continued, if saintly persons do not take care to eradicate completely the roots of sinful desires, they cannot experience the supersoul, although he is sitting side by side with the individual soul. Samadhi, or meditation, means that one has to find the supersoul within oneself. One who is not free from sinful reactions cannot see the supersoul. If a person has a jewel locket in his necklace but forgets a jewel, it is almost as though he does not possess it. Similarly, if an individual soul meditates but does not actually perceive the presence of the supersoul within himself, his meditation is useless. So Srila Prabhupada is saying, you know, in our bodies, all of us, we have our Atma, which is the soul, and then the super soul, which is right next to it. But most of us are not aware of that. The other day we were having a conversation at work, and one of my colleagues said, but you can't prove that the soul exists. And to that, you know, you say, there's no proof for those who do not believe. No proof is ever enough. But for those who believe, they don't need any proof. The soul is there. Srila Prabhupada has said that so many times. What carries you to your next body is your mind, intelligence, false ego, and your soul goes. At the end of this lifetime, at the end of this existence, when many of you, the body, the material body goes into the furnace, what goes forward into the next life form? It's your spirit soul. The spirit soul is in the region of the heart. Scientists cannot prove it. They don't know, because how tiny is the soul? I think many of you know that. It is 1/10,000th, the tip of a strand of hair. So you know how fine your hair can be. Imagine you divide that into 100 portions, and from that 100 again, and you take one tiny portion. That is how small the soul is. So can any of you here see the soul? Even the microscope cannot even see the soul. That is how minute it is. And this we have to understand is what our Vedic scripture tells us. We have to accept it, because the authority is from a bona fide source. We cannot dispute its truth, and we cannot dispute the fact that it does exist. It is something that is there, and we have to believe in it. You know, they say faith is something you cannot add to somebody's life. Faith is something that's innate, and you develop that, Shraddha. You develop faith when things happen. What happened the other day on Thursday? Many of you are aware. There was an Air India plane crash, and all but one of them survived. Over 240 had succumbed to this plane crash. So what does that teach you? In life, nothing is guaranteed. People were traveling, they were British citizens over 50 and Indian nationals over 190. But when they took that flight, nobody knew the outcome. Although there was trouble on board that flight, there's so many conspiracy theories of what actually happened. Only the Lord knows. Only the Lord knows. And there was a lady who missed that flight by 10 minutes. 10 minutes she missed that flight, and as she was leaving, she saw the flames, and the plane was up in flames, a towering inferno. That's what happened. We cannot predict anything that's going to happen. We cannot predict what will happen when we leave the temple room. So too, in 9/11, it was in 2001, when the Twin Towers in New York, that blew up also when the planes crashed through it. So many things happened. And then too, it was a pastime somebody narrated in a class. There was a lady who had an appointment, and her tire was flat. She was so disappointed. If you don't go on time for an appointment, what happens? They will be disappointed. This person hasn't pitched up. Anyway, she had to change the tire, but it didn't happen. She had to ask a passerby. When she did get to the building, there was nothing there. So can you see how life is? It presents challenges. Every minute, every moment is unpredictable. Everything that happens in our life. So this tells you there is a higher source. This soul there is a super soul here, your Param Atma, which is watching everything silently. Srila Prabhupada mentions that in the Bhagavad Gita. He is there seated, and he watches and witnesses every single action. When Srila Prabhupada was little, his school teacher said, "Oh, how does anyone know what happens to you, and who can say what happens to you?" This was from one of his teachers at Scottish church colleges. And that time Srila Prabhupada was little. They couldn't challenge their teacher, not like what happens nowadays. Now the students just challenge their teachers and say, "Oh, this and oh, that." And the other day I was speaking to an educator, and she said, now teaching is so hopeless. She's an educator for years. They're resigning. They cannot take the pressure. Because when we were little, we understood the teacher is a source of information. You respect them. You have to give them that degree of respect that they deserve. They're imparting knowledge to you. That is what our Vedic scripture teaches us. Your guru, sadhu, and shastra. And we pass that on to our school teachers. But now there's not much respect. The teachers are afraid to go into classroom. Their stress levels are so high that they are on tablets to contain their stress. This is what's happening in our modern day society. This is exactly what's happening. And with that said, back to the soul and super soul. Yes, many people may say you cannot prove it. And Srila Prabhupada will say, yes, there is proof. What takes you forward to the next life? At the end of the day, everyone is subject to their own belief. And there are many who say, no, it is a question of faith. You leave them at that and you continue. Because in the journey of life, you will meet many people. You will have many instances which develop and intensify your faith, your Shraddha. It will help you progress in your spiritual journey. Because at the end of the day, we are all spiritual journeys, spiritual beings, every one of us. This body leaves us. It doesn't follow us to the next lifetime. We must remember that. We have to remember that actually. As Srila Prabhupada was saying, it's like a jewel. When you have a locket and you don't see what's in it, you forget it. You forget it was ever there. So are we conscious of that soul within us? Are any of us conscious of our actions, of what we're doing to nourish that soul? There's so much we can do to feed it. We feed our material bodies. There's such lovely, sumptuous prasadam. But that soul needs something on a higher level because it vibrates at a higher frequency. That's what it is. And what it needs is spiritual food. That spiritual food is a devotional service, that chanting of the Maha Mantra, which you all were doing just now. That is that food that nourishes that soul. That's what it is. Every religion sings the name and the glories of the Lord. Whatever it is, it nourishes the soul. That's what the soul needs. It doesn't prosper and doesn't grow and develop with material food. Sometimes food that we eat doesn't nourish us. It doesn't. It doesn't do much for our health. We have to remember our bodies are material, but enclosed in that is your spirit soul. It is a casing for that spiritual entity, a spark. Your spirit soul is a spark. A spark that has fallen from Krishna. So when you imagine this fire, Krishna is this huge ball of fire, and we all are entities that have come from that. What happens when a tiny spark falls off from that flame of fire? Have you seen it when it touches the ground? It's like somebody douses it. It goes off. So too, you need to keep that burning. And what keeps it burning? You have to nourish it. You have to nourish it, cultivate that seed, that devotion. And that is what all our scripture speaks about. It says to cultivate that seed of service, devotional service. This chapter, Prayers by the Personified Vedas, is enhancing, it is speaking more about the subject matter. And persons who have taken to the path of self-realization must therefore be very careful to avoid contamination by the influence of Maya. Maya is very, very powerful. Illusion. Our bodies are subject to 5 defects. You all know the defects. We commit mistakes. We cheat. We fall under illusion, and we have imperfect senses. That's why we cannot see what's beyond this temple room walls. None of us can see what's happening at the bottom. We cannot even hear what's happening on the road. So how can we see the spirit soul? There are all these things that we have to understand. We cannot, with our limited senses, even perceive. Most of the things are inconceivable. That soul which is entrapped in the body is a spirit soul. It cannot be contaminated by Maya. It cannot be contaminated by anything material. So Srila Rupa Goswami said that a devotee should be completely free from all sorts of material desires. We all live in a material world. It's not easy. We have desires. Everyone will have desires because that is the nature of our lives. We'll have desires and we try to fulfill it. But at the end of the day, we must remember, is this desire something that is it something that I need? Can I do without this? When you're younger and you don't see much, you don't know much, you're under the guidance of your parents. Yesterday I was somewhere and a little boy kept asking his parents, I want that bike. He had 2 bikes at home, but he still wanted the one he saw in the shop that they visited. That's what it is, the nature of the material living being. Our mindset, we want everything that we see. But is everything that we see what we need? Do we really need everything that we see? When we have too much, at the time of death, we have so much to clear. You only know that when you have to clear something that someone has left behind. When people pass on, their families have to clear whatever material assets they have. And the more possessions you possess, at the time of death, you leave that. It's not a burden, but the family has to do so much. Winding up your estate, clearing your assets and possessions, making sure all your financial transactions are taken care of. So it's all those little things we have to remember now while we're in this journey of life. We have to remember, cut down your material desires. And if saintly persons do not take care to eradicate completely the roots of sinful desires, they cannot experience the super soul. Super soul, you'll notice people who are doing yoga, they vibrate, and for those who do natural healing, there's Reiki and so many other forms of healing. Those people, you'll see, like if they're very transformed and they're following the path, they can illuminate the room as they walk in. So they are vibrating on a higher level because they're taking seriously that connection between the super soul and their spirit soul. They have closed that gap. That is what our spiritual literature is teaching us. How do we close that gap between the super soul and the spirit soul? One thing is this chanting. When you're chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, you're trying to associate with that super soul. People who are doing yoga, what do now? They're doing all these fancy, asanas. Sometimes it's all physical, mainly physical. What do they derive at the end? And it's based on money, monetary gain. Do we really need that? Srila Prabhupada said, you walk in the morning briskly, you do your japa. That's what you need. People who participate in so many marathons, what does it do to you? It depletes your reserves. Your body, your bones wear out. It's not healthy to do that. Last week was a Comrades Marathon. And so many people, hats off to all those runners. I could not even possibly think of doing it. It is very strenuous on our body. We're not meant to over-endeavor in regards to what this body has to do. We over-endeavor in terms of spirituality, and you get the results that you deserve. That is what is necessary, not materially. Materially, you cannot do that because this body has a lifespan. Like your motor car, it needs to be serviced. It has a certain lifespan. When it gets too old, some of us who can afford it will renew the car. Some of us who can't will service the car, make sure it gets going where it needs to go. That's what it is with the human body. We're designed in that way. Now they're coming out with artificial intelligence. Everything is about AI. On your mobile phones, it says, ask AI about this, ask AI about that. It knows the answer to everything. But when you ask it spiritual stuff, it says, I'm sorry, I cannot answer. So can you see what AI is? It's artificial. It's not real, it's artificial. Which means it's based on man developing this concept. When man develops something, it is subject to mistake. It is fallible. We are from a source that is infallible. Krishna is infallible. He does not make mistakes. He does not make mistakes, and so he did not create AI. Man made it. It is subject to mistake. So we must be careful what we ask AI for. We can ask them for help with our assignments and everything that we need to do when we're studying. It's very good. AI is excellent. I had to do a reading and I said, please tell me a little bit more. AI said, give me the name, etc., etc. What did they do? And it gave a whole 2 paragraphs and it looked excellent. That is how good AI is. It's a robot. It is there to help us in our material lives. But you must be careful and selective about what you ask it for, like a robot, okay? So that is what the material world does. It can lead you on this path and away from your spiritual goal. You have to be very careful. That's why they're saying saintly persons, if they do not care to eradicate completely the roots of sinful desires, we don't have. If you're following the path, your desires won't be sinful. All of you chose to be here this morning. You could be one of those people who spent the night partying too much late last night and couldn't make it this morning, but you chose to be here. That gambling, Srila Prabhupada always says, no gambling, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication. Why? It's to purify the soul, purify everything about our existence, so we vibrate on a higher frequency, so we can close that gap between the soul and the super soul. That is our ultimate aim, to engage like that and to engage in devotional service, which this personified Vedas are saying. If we are not free from sinful reactions, we can't see the super soul. Who is the super soul? Paramatma. The super soul is the Lord. As I just mentioned, we can't see what's beyond these walls. Our eyes have so much of shortfalls, so many shortcomings with these imperfect senses. And even Arjuna, on the battlefield, you think he was pleased to see Krishna with 1,000 armed forms? He couldn't see all of that, the Virat Rupa. Arjuna was, oh Krishna, please return to your 2-armed form, because that's what I'm used to and I can't manage that. If the Lord did appear now, can any of us? It's too much. It's a glaring effulgence. It's like 1,000 millions of suns. This sun is only the light that we see. It's not the heat that is coming through and filtering through the windows. Can you imagine the intensity of heat on the surface of the sun? It is so high. So too the light of the Lord, so much we cannot tolerate. And until such time, this material body cannot. It cannot even see all of that. We have to develop, and that's why when we leave the body, we're getting closer. You know, you're on your path back to Godhead. You're there, you're on this path already. So that devotional service which this chapter is speaking about is to get us set on that path, just to nourish that spirit soul. Yoga you cannot perceive the super soul. I haven't seen many forms of yoga saying, and now you meditate upon the super soul. I haven't heard of them saying that. It can help you to control your mind slightly, but then where does the mind filter off? You know, sometimes when you're doing japa, what happens? The mind makes a mental list of all that you have to do during the day. It has that ability, the mind. If you cannot control the mind, Arjuna himself says in the Bhagavad Gita to Krishna, to control the mind is more difficult than controlling the wind, O Krishna. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Shri Gaura Hari ki jai. So control the mind is very difficult. So can you imagine how yoga can set you off that path? You can't. So, devotional service, it's something that is special, and it's something that the soul is going to develop with. We have to remember that. So the personified Vedas, you know, the four Kumaras, Brahma's children, it's spoken by Sanandana. So he's speaking all this in the hope that we're learning. When Srila Prabhupada gives us all this literature, it's not whimsical. It has come from the source was Krishna. Down through Brahma, Narayan Rishi, Narad Muni, all the way down to the 32nd bona fide source was sitting right there in the front, Srila Prabhupada. It is for our benefit. It wasn't made to be kept on the bookshelf. It is books meant to be read, to develop our life in Krishna consciousness. And in Krishna consciousness is the only life form in which you can gain liberation out of the cycle. You know, birth, death, old age and disease. You can't see any animals in this audience. They cannot take to that path. I mean, many of you may say, but what about Jada Bharat? Jada Bharat was special. He was Bharat Maharaj, King Bharat Maharaj. And because he had become too attached to that deer, in the mode of goodness who he had saved, that little deer whose mom had been lost, he saved and looked after that deer, so much so that at the time of the deer, of his parting, he thought of the deer. And he took birth as a deer. But what did he do as a deer? He didn't sit and go into the jungle and then just eat fruits and whatever berries he had. He sat in the audience of rishis. He was listening to transcendental literature being spoken. He didn't waste that life form. He understood what had happened. And he gained that knowledge, and he took that birth, he developed his knowledge even more, and in the next birth, he was Jada Bharat. So he knew. And in Jada Bharat, what happened? He acted like he was completely insane. No one wanted to be with him. He acted like a madman, but he knew everything. His family didn't associate with him. Yet he was in such an aristocratic family. He didn't take on the riches. So he understood his birth. He understood what the nature of the soul is. He understood that journey of his soul. He understood what he needed to do. So we have to learn from these characters, all of these different people in our Srimad Bhagavatam. In this Vedas, the personified Vedas, they're telling us the life of Krishna consciousness is the only path of liberation. You have 8,400,000 species of life. No one can take, except that 400,000 human births, can you take advantage of this human birth and develop your Krishna consciousness. That is very, very important. And by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we can do that. And Krishna, Srila Prabhupada says, Karmis, Jnanis and Yogis are not liberated. It's very difficult for them. Only Bhakti Yoga, this path of devotional service which you can develop, only in this form, the Bhakti Yogas. The Bhakti Yogas can get out of this path of samsara, birth, death, old age and disease. And you know, material life presents challenges, and they'll always be there as long as we have this material body. Within this material world, They say Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. It is a place of misery. Misery because, see, now everyone's got the flu and is doing its visits. You cannot escape it, but you have to take precautions. You'll have Adi Atmik related to the body, Adi Bautik by other people who present challenges, and Adi Devik. The other day on Tuesday was gale force winds. It created so much of destruction, and it reminded us of the tornado from a year ago. So that is the Devatas. When they're not happy with what's happening, anything can happen. But you seek refuge in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In everything you do, devotees understand. You must see the hand of the Lord in everything that happens. Whatever happens, like I mentioned earlier, the plane crash, everything you see is the mercy of the Lord. One of our devotees was saying, but Mataji, my little daughter, she couldn't understand. How do I explain to her how these children in this tragic instant just left their bodies? How can you explain that to a child? You turn to our scripture. What is meant to happen, we cannot question it. The Lord will always minimize what's meant to happen. And when soul groups leave, how much do we know? That may have been one soul group. People who study that, it's a whole group of souls that were born together and have to leave together. They have to leave at the same time. It was like that tsunami that happened years ago in the early 2000s. We cannot question anything that happens because we're not at that level. And our understanding, it's inconceivable. It is inconceivable. If you think about Krishna, he has so much of potency. As I mentioned earlier, Arjuna was saying, Krishna, I cannot tolerate this form of yours, which is standing before me. It's inconceivable. We cannot think how much of cloth, that Virat Rupa form of Krishna takes. Today the Lord is so beautifully dressed, Srimati Radharani, in their beautiful outfits. But imagine the Virat Rupa form of the Lord. Can anyone possibly dress that except the Lord himself? The Lord, we've taken so many births, and in chapter 4, Krishna says to Arjuna, many births both you and I have had. I can remember all of them. Text number 5, verse number 5. But you cannot remember any of them. Imagine if everyone here in this room remembered what happened in your previous life. I would be totally shocked. You would be thinking, where's my parents? Today's Father's Day, you'll remember, where's my father from my other life? Where is he now? Is he still alive? You'd be thinking, what happened? What caused my death? Lots of people say, I want to know who I was. And they have these glamorous ideas that they were princes or princesses in this Egyptian era. People think you were so well off. We don't know what we were. We could have been slaves, enslaved by masters. We don't know who or what we were. But can you see the mercy of the Lord? He doesn't make us remember. Once you have that material body, at the time of death, it means forgetfulness. So that's what Krishna is all about. Because he has a spiritual body, he remembers everything. And our material bodies, we cannot remember what happened in the past. We cannot. Devotional service, and we're getting back to the book, is never within the jurisdiction of the law of karma. Devotees of the personality of God transcend all the three reactions of the three modes of material nature and are situated on the transcendental platform of Brahman realization. The devotees are liberated both in this life and the next. That's what I mentioned earlier, when you take into that path of Krishna consciousness. Any work done in this material world for yagya, for Krishna or Vishnu, is considered to be liberated work, but without connection with him. There is no possibility of stopping the resultant actions of the law of karma. We're subject to the law of karma. Everything you have to understand. I came with my karma, every one of you as well. Whatever happened, the Lord just minimizes it when you take to that devotional path. He does that. And the grace of the Lord will help us with what's happening in our lives. And if you understand, by the mercy and the grace of the Lord, if you understand the glories of the Lord, you will proceed in your life blissfully. The material pangs are inevitable as long as we live within this world. But a devotee does not divert his attention to such actions and reactions, which are the results of past pious and impious activities. Every single thing, you'll see the Jain people, the Jain religion, they cover their mouths with a handkerchief so that they don't kill any living entities. Sometimes when we walk, there's ants, we see it, we move away. If we don't see it with our cars, we just trample on them. So all that is sinful. Can you imagine? And how many animals, Srila Prabhupada always says, how many animals are being taken helplessly to the slaughterhouse daily? Thousands every single day. Those are all sinful actions. And for sinful actions, there is going to definitely be a reaction. We cannot question it. We have to accept it. Because if man who is highest in the ecosystem cannot, with that highest level of consciousness, cannot understand his actions and why he's doing what he's doing. We're meant to be the most intelligent species. But what do we use our intelligence for? Srila Prabhupada said, constructing huge buildings and making super fast, you're making these bullet trains or making aircraft that can travel so fast. But as I mentioned earlier, everything that's man-made will be subject to destruction. It doesn't happen. It doesn't augur well for our spiritual life. It doesn't. We have to use this intelligence to engage it in serving and pleasing the Lord. When we do that, we get in touch with nature. Because at the end of the day, what Srila Prabhupada says is simple living and higher thinking. He knew that. He didn't just say that and continue to say that. Why did he say that? And so many times in his classes, he said to his audience, you're making so much of this. Can you live on a diet of nuts and bolts? In all fairness, can you eat metal? I don't think we can. We have to live with, they have subsistence planning. You live in your home, you grow your own vegetables. And you do that, you have organic produce, which is so healthy. Most of the time now we're buying things from the shops. They have pesticides. Many of us are reacting to it. People who never had allergies in their life, you speak to them now. They're allergic to milk. They're allergic to nuts. And for those of them who consume a meat, they say they're allergic to fish and chicken. Well, you can understand the fish because there's so much of effluent going into the seas. These are all little things we have to understand. Why did Srila Prabhupada say that? Why are our books saying that? That natural, simple lifestyle helps us develop this body. It helps give us health. That's what it is. We have to understand. A devotee's transcendental position within this material world is maintained in the association of pure devotees simply by hearing the glorious activities enacted by the Lord in different ages and in different incarnations. The Krishna consciousness movement is based on this principle. Around this temple room, you'll see forms of the Lord, different pastimes. It is there to remind us what form did the Lord take. And see, there's a Damodar Astakam. You can see when the Lord pulled down the twin Arjuna trees. And the twin Nalakuver and Managriv were released from the tree forms. Krishna did all that. All of those activities, stealing butter with brother. See, Balaram is there as well. And then the jewels as well, he was selling the jewels of Mataji. Came one of the gopis and she was selling jewels, he couldn't afford it. And he gave her the seeds. But when she gave him the fruit, he transformed all of that into jewels full into a basket. It's little things to remind us of the pastimes of the Lord. The Lord's Naam, his name, Roop, Guna and Leela. We cannot with this mental, little material brain conceive all of it. Lord Vishnu, with every single breath, as he inhales, universes are annihilated. And as he exhales, they are created. Now, those are from the pores. Now, from our body, this material body, what emanates? Sweat from these hair follicles. And sometimes they become blocked. Then you have to have treatment to release all the debris and the sweat glands that are blocked, all of that matter that comes out. Sometimes it becomes infected. But Lord Vishnu is not like that. He has a spiritual body. From his pores, universes emanate. And it is told further down, it expands so much so that, the 5 elements are there. And along with that, earth, water, fire, air, and sky, which is ether, the total material and energy and false ego are not only within the universe, but cover the universe in 7 layers. And each layer is 10 times bigger than the previous one. In this way, each and every universe is very securely packed. Now, if you think of this earth, we cannot see beyond the sky. Your eyes and your vision is limited to what's around you. If you look, there's beautiful clouds and you can see the blue hints of sky and the white clouds. But beyond that, there's the stratosphere, the atmosphere, and layers, and enclosed within that, then there's more universes. We cannot see. When science sees anything, they see this vacuum. You know, when you did science and you see the planet Earth, when the spaceships go out, you see Earth and it looks like a tiny marble, and it's a black vacuum around you. But they don't tell you more about what happens. And they say in this universe, there's how many? 9 planets? And that's it. Beyond that, they don't know much. They want to travel to other planets, but you know what Srila Prabhupada said about that? Even to go to another country, you need a visa. How can you just land on the soil? If someone comes here, we'll call them imposters, and you don't have the proper documentation. So Srila Prabhupada said, you cannot do that. Everything that the Lord does, He does, for a reason. Everything. Every universe that is packed, it's infinite. They are infinite universes. And they float within the innumerable pores of the transcendental body of Mahavishnu. And it's said that just as the atoms and particles of dust are floating with the air, along with the birds and their number, they cannot be calculated. There's over how many? 900,000 species of birds. And you see only a limited, and yet they're so beautiful. Look at those birds. Krishna Maharaj. But you can't assimilate all of this data. You cannot. Everything the Vedas say is beyond the grasp of our knowledge. We cannot understand the length and breadth of God because it is beyond the jurisdiction of our mental speculation. And that is what we do. People speculate. A person who is actually learned and sane does not claim to be God, but tries to understand God, making distinctions between spirit and matter. So right now, everyone becomes very obsessed with social media. Apparently, there is this savior who's come to deliver people. I won't mention many names. I think for those of you who listen to TikTok will have seen those videos. And people are so, is this for real? Is this what's happening? And he's come to deliver people. He says that who he has come. He is sent by the Lord. But no one's asked him, if you've seen the Lord and the Lord has sent you, what does the Lord look like? Or how come you're so empowered? And if you are empowered, you can't be mortal. Nobody mortal can be empowered like that. And does he have birth, which he would have been born, death, disease, old age? He will die and leave this planet. So you see, people are just aimlessly believing whatever they're seeing on social media. We should use our intelligence and question everything. Question it. Don't fall prey to social media. Everything that we see, we shouldn't believe. It is beyond our mental thought process. A person who is actually learned and sane does not claim to be God. We should make an intelligent choice. By careful discrimination, we can understand that the Supreme Soul, the Paramatma, is transcendental to both the superior and inferior energies, although he has a direct connection with both. And Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, although everything is resting on his energy, he is different or separate from that energy. And again, they go on to say, Srila Prabhupada says, nature and the living entities are sometimes designated as Prakriti, which is nature, and Purush, respectively. The whole cosmic manifestation is an amalgamation of this nature and the living entities. And the living entities are the effective cause. These two combine together, and the effective cause is the the effect is the cosmic manifestation. When one is fortunate enough to come to the right conclusion about this cosmic manifestation and everything going on within it, he knows it to be caused directly and indirectly by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore it's concluded in the Brahma Samhita, therefore, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anarir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. After much deliberation and consideration, one who has attained this knowledge and has come to the conclusion that Krishna or God is the original cause of all causes. instead of speculating about the measurement of God, whether he is this large or small, or falsely philosophizing, one should come to the conclusion of the Brahma Samhita, which says, Krishna, or God, is Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. That is the perfection of all knowledge. So it goes on here, and the personified Vedas are speaking. There's so much. And sages like Narad Muni and the Kumaras travel throughout the universe. Then there's the 12 Mahajans. They teaching us knowledge. The 4 Kumaras, they were so little. For many of you who've seen the pictures of Lord Brahma's sons, they were small little boys. And they had gone to visit Lord Vishnu, and at the doors, Jay and Vijay saw them, and they said they couldn't enter, and for that they were cursed. Obviously, all this is transcendental. It didn't, this is the Lord's pastime. And even Lord Vishnu, when he heard of that curse, he said, you can have my limbs, but please forsake this curse. Take it back. But they couldn't, because it was uttered, and whatever was uttered had to go through. So these 12 Mahajans, they're going about Narad Muni, Lord Brahma, there's Shiva, the 4 Kumaras, Kapila, there's Swayambhuva Manu, Prahlad Maharaj, Janaka Maharaj, Bhishma, Bali, Sukadev Goswami, and Yamaraj. The 12 Mahajans are teaching us the path to devotional service. They're teaching us knowledge. Sometimes when somebody gives you knowledge, you should be grateful. Our gurus are there. Srila Prabhupada is there. And this being the 50th year of his arrival in South Africa, we should be so grateful, thinking, how can we please him in this year? Can I distribute more books? Let me make myself a personal challenge. I'll do this, I'll do that. Not I. Actually, ability in man comes from Krishna. It won't be you, it will be the Lord doing it. And just to glorify his pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. So everything we do, you ask the Lord. You have to, because in our material life, we cannot possibly do everything daily without the Lord's help and intervention. When you daily travel in your car, you sing prayers before you embark on your journey, because you don't know what the road ahead holds. So many things happen. And as I mentioned earlier, the lady who missed her flight, so many times on the road, you will see there's an accident scene. And then you're thinking, thank goodness I was late. Otherwise, I would have been caught in that collision. So you're grateful to the Lord for saving you and for delaying you. It's all those little aspects in our life. It is beyond our mind's conception. We cannot possibly conceive that. And all of this, that the 12 Mahajans are imparting us knowledge. Like Prahlad Maharaj, he used to preach to his little devotee friends in class. Imagine, when he used to go to school, when he had spare time and the lunch break, he used to preach to them transcendental knowledge. He said this human birth is so precious. You should use it to develop your knowledge of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You don't waste your time and your life. And they used to chant the Maha Mantra. Look at what he did. Now when you at work have time, you can preach to your fellow colleagues. Like I said in the other day, we were talking about the soul and the super soul. So everyone brings forth their thought processes, and you can say, but Srila Prabhupada said this, and you refer them to all the texts that are relevant. And you know what? They say, oh, okay, I didn't know that. Because people really do not know that. Then you can give them a book. This is a chance, an opportunity to give them a book. An easy journey to other planets, the science of self-realization. There's so many books. Bhagavad Gita. This Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita also survived the plane crash. For those of you who saw it, was passing through many of our WhatsApp statuses. People had that. We don't know who had the book, whether it was in that campus, whether it was in someone's luggage, but the luggage was all burnt. The Bhagavad Gita, outer pages only had signs of smoke. All the pictures of the Lord were intact. All the information, what does that show you? This book is indestructible. And who is speaking the Bhagavad Gita? The Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this must, things happen to strengthen our faith. Most people say, who wants a Bhagavad Gita? I have it already. But do they understand? You can use this when distributing books. You can say, Prabhu, Mataji, see what happened. That plane crash? This is what happened. This book stood the test of time. This is how indestructible this book is, this literature is. There were so many people on board that flight. They were of different nationalities, one Canadian, I think 7 Portuguese, and as I mentioned, British citizens and Indian nationals. This book survived. Their luggage was strewn, even the corpses. Think about it. Think about it. People were burnt beyond recognition. They have to use DNA samples to recognize the bodies, to identify. But this book stood the test of that time, showing us how strong it is, our spiritual literature. We should seek solace in this. We belong to this line. Due to Srila Prabhupada, what he's given us, we can understand the basis. We can understand where we belong. And that's why devotional service activities will nourish the soul and set us on our journey back. It will help us in our journey. So Sri Narad Muni also is a Naistika Brahmachari, Srila Prabhupada says. A Naistika Brahmachari remains celibate throughout their lives. We're not saying everyone should become like Narad Muni. It's not easy. It's not very easy. And for those of, Srila Prabhupada always said, and I say this, there's more females in the world now than men. He said, so if a man marries more than one female, it's acceptable. Because it can be done, and scripture says it can be done. That means if he can afford to. Now, Sri Krishna had 16,108 wives, but he didn't give one less attention in Dwaraka. He didn't say this, and he didn't have one was less. No, they all had so many sons, and each one of them had their own palace. So they all had that same opulence. So if you can afford to have many wives and give them all exactly the same wealth, go ahead, so be it. You can do that. But I think in Kali Yuga, it's not practical. Prabhus, Matajis even know, you cannot. Just to have one relationship, the cost of living is very, very high. And sometimes, Maharaj is always saying in the class, is it the cost of living or the cost of existing? Because day to day we really exist, from one dawn to dusk. We're just existing in our lives. We're going to work, trying to pay the bills. So we must move out of this concept. Live our lives. Come to the temple like you've done. Do your service. It will make you so much happier. When you step foot in this temple, it's not ordinary. It's extraordinary. It's a spiritual world. You've come here. When you go back outside, you feel the difference because the energy is different. But you take back, this nourishes you. You take back what you've seen, you've heard. That image of the deities on the altar. The devotees have done their service and made them so beautiful. But anyway, the Lord beautifies everything around him. So it's the Lord's beauty that's exuding all this beauty around him. We must take solace in that fact. We would never have known of this was it not for Srila Prabhupada. When I was little, and many of you, we weren't introduced to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I never even knew who he was. We did our worship of the demigods. We questioned the priests who never answered our questions. And you keep questioning. And that's what Srila Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita. 4 kinds of pious men turn to him. Who are the 4 kinds? Those in distress. People who are really in distress, they'll turn to the Lord. Those seeking wealth. Those who are curious and inquisitive, and those who are seeking knowledge. And out of all 4 of them, who is the best? Those in search of knowledge. So when you're looking, we all are looking. We're all trying to understand things that happen. Sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, it's beyond the scope of what we can understand. And that is why we have to take the guidance of a guru. Because the guru knows more than all of us. They are empowered. And if it comes from a line of bona fide acharyas, like Srila Prabhupada is a bona fide guru, he's giving you that knowledge that is from our scripture. It is unadulterated, unabridged. This is what we must learn from, and this is who we must learn from. Devotional service is about that, strengthening our knowledge base, learning from the Guru that yes, we must participate in devotional service. You've all done that by chanting the Maha Mantra. Naistaka Brahmachari Narad Muni, he can do that. He travels. He was cursed by Durvasha Muni. He couldn't stay. He can't stay in one place for a very long time, and he was so happy because he can go everywhere preaching. If someone tells you, you can't stay in this place more than so long, we'll think, how can you possibly do that to me? But Narad Muni was so elated, I can travel everywhere singing the glories of the Lord. So that was his, the way to see it. That is the thing. You always see the good out of something. Don't think, oh, this is so bad. I can't believe that person said that to me. Whatever it is, just, we have 2 ears, so you can hear and just block out, and with the other ear, hear something else. When people tell us things, sometimes it's our past karma. We meant to hear it. And you always notice, they say, you are given what you can handle. These shoulders bear a lot. For those of you who are mothers and fathers, you take on so much of responsibility. Today is Father's Day. The fathers know how hard they work. The mothers as well. We can deal with so much in this human birth. This tiny spirit soul. The person asked, so how can you see the soul is there? How can I see it beyond this body? I can't see what's internal in my body. Even scientists, the medical doctors who are qualified cannot see what's inside. They need X-rays, MRI and CT scans to see what's inside. No medical doctor who is medically trained can see beyond this body. And when you're ill, when you go to the doctor, what do they tell you? What's wrong with you? What happened? You think the doctor is all-knowing, omniscient, like the Lord, who is omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient? He doesn't know you're not taking your chronic medicine, that's why you're sitting in front of him. He doesn't know that in the morning you're going on your morning jog without your head covered. He's not going to tell you, Prabhu Mataji, you need to take your multivitamins today so you develop your strength and so your bone grows stronger. He's just going to ask you, so how long did you have your runny nose? Oh, the flu is in the air, that's why you have influenza. It's things like that which they will tell you from what you tell them. So when you go to your guru and you say, I was thinking, why is the sky blue? Why is Krishna this color? Why is he black in some temples or white marble to here? Why is Lord Ram green? Why is Krishna with his brother? Why does he appear with a cow? Who can you ask these questions to? Can you ask your medical doctor about it? He won't know the answers, but you can ask your spiritual doctor, who is your bona fide guru. You can write to your guru, ask your guru, ask Srila Prabhupada, and you know how he will present the answers to his book. When you ask Srila Prabhupada anything sincerely, the answer will come. If it's not from another devotee, it will come from a class. It will come from a book, and immediately the answer is there. If you don't believe what I've just said, try it. It happens. There's many devotees who will testify to this. So Narad Muni and all of these Mahajans are there to help us. As I said, we cannot possibly follow the same path of being Naistika Brahmacharis. It's not possible. But in our capacity as very capable adults, we can just take seriously this path of devotional service, which the prayers by the personified Vedas are speaking about. It's saying to take this seriously. In all our Vedas, the end result of all the Vedas, and I'll read these last few sentences. Simply by knowing the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, one becomes free from the chains of the repetition of birth and death. And after quitting his present body, he goes back home, back to Godhead. This is the conclusion of all the Vedas. That's the Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, and Atharva Veda. Thus, after understanding the prayers offered by the personified Vedas, one should surrender unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. The Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada said, when you read it at night, you have dreams of the Lord. And many people won't share it because it's not so cheap and say, you know what, I dreamt of this, etc. But when you read it at night, you'll find you may not remember your dream, which is good. You were in another dimension. The Krishna book, you read one page, any spiritual literature before bed. We must try and spend more of our time in devotional aspects. That mundane television news and things won't help us in our lives. It won't. It doesn't even charge our spiritual batteries. What charges your spiritual batteries is your spiritual sadhana, seva, your devotional service. And today, I'm sorry if I went a little bit over time, I encourage all of us to take this process. The personified Vedas, Sanandana was speaking. It's for our benefit. Give some gratitude to what they've done, the Mahajans. Show them that little bit of thanks. And on this day of being Father's Day, we remember Srila Prabhupada being our spiritual father, our gurus as well, and understand the sacrifice he made when he stepped foot in South Africa. He blessed the soil. 50 years ago, imagine what we would have been in this dark subcontinent had Srila Prabhupada not set foot here. We have to be grateful for what he's accomplished and for what ISKCON in South Africa has accomplished. And we should just try and serve this mission of ISKCON to the best that we can. Thank you all very much for attending. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Any comments, thoughts, realizations, questions? Mataji, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Aribol. Regarding the Krishna book,
Yes, Mata.
I could relate to many, many years when I first got into contact with the Bhagavad Gita. I've read it, I don't know how many times. I couldn't grasp a thing. I only grasped 1866, which says, surrender unto me.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. At that moment, I was extremely frustrated because after having read the Bhagavad Gita, my church life just expired. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Yeah.
Then I had a copy of the Krishna book. I don't know how I was inspired to read it at night. I had nobody, I knew no one. I couldn't relate to anybody, ask anyone question. But whenever I've read that book, the following morning was like I was flying on the clouds. Hare Krishna.
Can you
Hare
all
Krishna,
see Hare
Krishna,
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 Hare Hare,
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. That was the only thing I could relate, I could remember, and I could chant. Nothing else from the Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you. You all know that verse Mataji said, Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Praja. You know, Shri Krishna is saying 1866. So see, Mataji was following the Christian faith, and somebody distributed this book to you, yeah?
A rabble of other books, and at the most unlikely place. At that point, I had registered for my master's. I was working for government, and I'd just gone to the post office to get my assignments registered. Then there was a person I couldn't even remember. There were stacks of books there. Then I saw a very cruel person, a very strange looking person beating the horses. I was worried about why were the horses beaten. And at the back page, I got in touch with Mahatma Gandhi's quotation. When doubts haunt me, when disappointments, and I can see no hope of horizon, on the horizon, I turn to the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
There's the moment that I took the Bhagavad Gita. I started reading the Bhagavad Gita as a Christian. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna. All glories. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Yeah, Mataji is saying, Mahatma Gandhi, when doubts haunt me, when disappointments stare me in the face, I see not one ray of hope on the horizon. I turn to Bhagavad Gita and find a verse to comfort me, and I immediately begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming sorrow. Those who meditate on the Gita will derive fresh joy and new meanings from it every day. This is a statement from Mahatma Gandhi. So too, Adolf Hitler, he used the Bhagavad Gita. So you know, there's so much of evidence, so much of testimonies from scientists, scholars. We had this book in our Vedic literature base. Just take advantage of it, please. Yeah. Anything else?
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Such an inspiring class, and strengthening our faith in this Bhakti Yoga process, in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and in Srila Prabhupada. You were speaking about the plane crash. That's like the talk of the topic of that's going all over now. And I think there was one survivor from the plane crash, and then Bhagavad Gita. And so yesterday we were doing Harinam in the Durban CBD, and so towards the end we go into the Victoria Street curio shop market and things. And so we were speaking to this Prabhu, and this topic came up. He brought it up, and so we were speaking and and trying to explain from Bhagavad Gita and things. And so he mentioned something that I think in the 70s sometime that market was burnt down.
Yeah.
Right?
Victoria.
And he was explaining, so he's had a shop from there from that time, and he said, so when that market was burnt down, everything was ruined. I mean, everything. Just like that plane crash, everything was ashes. You couldn't decipher what was what. But he said there was one shop that had a huge chariot made of ivory. And on the chariot, there was a murti of Krishna. And that was the sole thing that did not get burnt, the murti of Krishna.
Sure.
So yeah, Krishna is giving us signs
Yes.
all the time that, He is the Supreme Lord, and take shelter of Him. And just like He is indestructible, we devotees of Krishna become indestructible.
Yeah, it's like your social media platforms. Everything is subject to destruction except the Supreme Lord. I mean, if you can't see this, this is evidence. And the Lord, as Prabhu is saying, they very good. The Harinam every week, I think every day, some of the Prabhus go. This is giving us evidences to strengthen our faith, to strengthen our preaching, ideas. You can speak to others and mention, this is what happened. And he's giving an example. So too, there's many other examples. For those who go on Sankirtan, people will tell you and narrate. And we can see this. As you can see now, Prabhu said, anything man-made is subject to destruction. But what the Lord made can never be destroyed, like your super soul, like your spirit soul that you all of us are. So you have to understand that, yeah? That's it.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Hare Krishna devotees. The only thing that was a setback for me is I had entirely lost taste in my church life. And all the other books that I've been reading, I removed them out of my house, all of them. I put them in the garage in a box. The other day, I wanted to check in that box, and there was a snake in it. Honestly, I was just rambling around, but the snake didn't bite me. Hare Krishna. And later, during the years, many years later, when I asked my Maharaj, why is it that after I've read the Bhagavad Gita, and I slept with the Bhagavad Gita on my pillow, and I went into my garage, I stay in a rural place, where I'm staying is predominantly rural, so there could be snakes. That was my first instance of, having to have contact, with a snake, palpable contact with a snake. I touched the snake just coiled around and moved away. Maharaj said it must have been Lord Ananta Shesh, something. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare.
Yes. So Ananta says, see how our gurus see the spiritual in every instance. And it's also association, Mataji. When you didn't want to have those books, it's because they would have clouded your judgment and what this has. And that knowledge was going to only confuse you even more. And that's what happens. That's why they say association. When they say association with the devotees and pure devotees is this too as well. Who you associate with, what you read, what you take in. Because we're always being bombarded by images. If you're driving, everything is to distract us off that path. Social media distracts you completely off that path. Remember your goal, your destination is set, and we are on this path. Try to avoid those distractions. It's not easy. That is why we have to take on board the words of our gurus in our life. And what Srila Prabhupada is saying. When we do that, like you've learned so nicely, when you have those personal experiences happen to you, it strengthens your Shraddha. And when you engage in the association of sadhu sangha, when you have that association, it strengthens it even more till we can develop the ultimate, which is prema bhakti, which we can't feel in this body. You need a spiritual body to really, that process of prema bhakti, you cannot experience in this body. So all is, your destination, just you set on that path, continue with it. And you'll see the results like all of you have seen right now. In your personal lives, you'll see transformation. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Go, Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.